great to have Chase Daniel back here on Sports Spectrum. What's up, my friend? How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure
Yeah.
to get interviewed by you, Jason. Known you a while, so it's been a run, man. It's been a fun time. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I knew you way back when. Like you and I spent a day at ESPN when you were still in college at Missouri. So I can say I knew you before, right? Before the
Yeah,
NFL, before any of this broadcast stuff.
yeah. No, I remember meeting you, and you were ESPN, and
Yeah.
it's been wild. You just sort of followed my career everywhere. So I'm really grateful for that, thankful for that, and yeah, it's been crazy. I can't believe I played 14 years, and
I know.
I'm already starting year 2 out, which is
Right.
just absolutely nuts. So, yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
It has. And I love that we get to be a part of ministry together too with
Yeah.
PAO and certainly with Sports Spectrum, which is really cool and the most important thing. Um, year two out. You didn't kind of formally make an announcement, like a retirement announcement, did you? Or I might have missed that. I don't think you did that though.
You're the third person I've asked or has asked me that this week
This
on
week.
on
Oh gosh.
podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I was on Dan Patrick, and he was like, I haven't heard anything. Like, I'm like, dude, come on. Like, yeah. So I'm officially retired. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not a big fan. Well, for me personally, like, I don't feel the need to put like I'm retired, and I feel like it's just too much of a love fest. I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I walked away from the game on my terms, which a lot of people thank God, for all his glory. Like, I was
Yes.
able to go out on his terms and my terms. And that's not a lot of times the case. So I just didn't. I mean, look, I'm not some star stud quarterback that's a Hall of Fame. So I don't need that.
Right.
And really, I thought my announcement was this past year when I took an NFL Network job, like announcing that I was going to be doing that rather than playing. And everyone's like, "Hey, you need to formally announce." And Hillary and I talked about it and prayed about it. I'm like, well, we don't need that. Like, eventually it'll come out and come out. And so yeah, I'm officially retired. And that's so funny because literally, the time we're taping this 3 days ago, I asked my agent, my football agent. I was like, hey, like, I need to sign the papers. Like, let's just get this over with, send it to the NFL. Like, I need to turn in my papers that I'm retired. And he was like, it's such a myth. There's no papers. You don't need to do anything. And so I was sort of like heartbroken because I was like, that was sort of like going to be my closure to the
Yeah.
check. But I'm like, he's like, no, dude, you don't send in anything. They take care of it. You haven't been on a roster. They send you. I literally just got my severance pay.
There you
So
go.
that's how I know it's official. It's 18 months from the time of your last game. And yeah, I played last game July of 23. Sorry, January of 2023 in a playoff game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Not a good playoff game, by the
Not
way.
a good playoff game. Worst
Yes.
comeback in NFL history, or biggest comeback in NFL history for them.
Yeah.
So I got it July of 2024. It was like right on the dot, 18 months. I'm like, sweet. I didn't even know I was supposed to get it. Like, I knew there was something going on, but I get this check in the mail. I'm like, oh, hey, that's cool.
Did you have an inkling that that was your last game? Not that you don't want ever to lose a game like that and have that be it, but did you have an inkling that that might be the end?
For about 2 years, I hadn't lost my joy for the game, but I'd always just been like really excited to do the work involved to get to Sundays.
Hmm.
Like, I was in love with the process truly. In the last 2 years, maybe it was because I was driving an hour to Orange County because we live in San Diego and back. So I was in the car 2.5 hours round trip every single day for the last 2 years of my career. And I saw my kids about 12 hours a week during season.
Yeah.
I think that's probably weighed on me, but I wasn't in love with the process as much. So it had been crossing my mind, like, oh, I wonder what this could look like. And we got offers. I mean, we got offers to go be a backup. Like, I got an offer from the Las Vegas Raiders last year. Or like, we were talking, and it was going to be that way if I said, okay, let's go. But I didn't want to move my family to Vegas.
Yeah.
My family had moved around so much, and it was sort of like God's blessing on our family, because the last 2 years of our career, we got to stay in our home base in San Diego, and I would just drive up. So it was easy for my wife. It was great for my kids. My kids are plugged in youth sports. They're plugged in. We're plugged in at our church here. So we actually got to feel really settled. So the thought of moving again was just like, let's not do that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But you've been working on this kind of media broadcasting thing for a while. I've seen you for years kind of filling in, doing opportunities with NFL
Yeah.
Network and any other place that could have you. And then even during COVID, the last time we had you on, by the way, where it was just you and me, was during COVID when you had just got the job with the Lions,
Yeah.
but you had started these Chase Chats podcasts. So that's
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure even before that, you started. So this media thing has been kind of something brewing in you for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah. I think that, look, I always felt a calling in my life to have football be a part of who I am in some way, some shape, some form. I feel like I'm an expert at football, like, and it gives me a lot of earthly joy, but it
Sure.
also gives me a huge platform. I mean, I can't tell you, Jason, and we can get into this later, but how many times I've been on teams where Hillary and I have hosted Bible studies at our house. Like Philadelphia Eagles, we started hosting Bible studies on Mondays. The first week there was like 6 couples, 5 couples, and the last week we had 22 couples.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so it's just like that's such an important part of that. And then so you talk about the media thing, it just God put it on my heart, like you need to be in football some way, some shape, some fashion. And so the ultimate thing and what a lot of guys end up doing is going into coaching. And so that was definitely weighing on my heart a lot. I can't say so much for my wife because the family atmosphere that coaching is, and just the time it takes to be a good coach, you're gone more than player. So that was sort of not an option. So I was like, oh, media. And then I've always, like I said, always been like asked by teams, hey, do this. Like the training camp video I did in 2018 with Chicago Bears, where I was wearing a bucket hat. I mean, the thing got over 1 million views, went viral, like, and it was just funny. And it was just me just being myself, showing personality.
Yeah.
And so I just sort of always gravitated. I remember in I got to get this year right, 2018 or 2019, Trey Wingo, formerly of ESPN, we did a podcast last year
Yep.
together.
Love Trey.
He called me and was like, hey, come up and co-host Golick and Wingo for a day. I was like, oh, like be on it? He's like, no, co-host it. 3 hours, you're on it. I was like, wow. I'm like, that's pretty cool, because it was divisional round, and I think I had played, or maybe it's wild card round, and I played it on like 6 of the teams that were in wild card round. So he's like, you have such good insight, such good stuff. And I remember the feeling going in, was nervous, and then it flowed. Like a 3 hour show was quick.
Hmm.
And I got really good feedback from Trey, from Mike, from all the ESPN people. I'm like, oh, this could be something, down the road that I'd want to do. But I wanted to play some more, and I ended up playing 4 more years. But yeah, it was cool. I hired an agent, a broadcast agent,
Yeah.
my first year in LA. So in 2021. And we got a gig while I was playing on national TV at NFL Network, working Monday nights in studio. And it was a real job. It was a lot of time and effort away from the family. But it was I got in 30 studio shows, like right after Monday Night Football. They came to us, and it was so cool to be able to learn. I remember my first night on camera, I was just so green and fresh, and just like, so it was such an interesting thing. So I think that really put me in a good position. And it just really, because I heard from a lot of people, I reached out to a lot of people that I trust that are mentors to me. They're like, you're either going to hate it or you're going to love it.
Yeah.
And
No in between.
there was really no in between. And for me, it was truly like, I loved it. And it was just gave me a platform to sort of use my mind more than physical. And I really enjoyed it.
Do you have it? My friend, I think you know Jerry Madelon pretty well. My friend Jerry, who's I've known GMAT for years from ESPN
Yeah.
days, and he obviously does a lot of work with guys who are current and former guys,
Yeah.
especially in the broadcast space. And GMAT always told me, criticize their performance, not their performer.
Yeah.
Treat this as a job. It's not just like a side gig you do. Oh, you just show up, do this like it's a job. And I wonder what that transition's been like for you on the other side now with analyst work on being able to be opinionated. I remember talking to Dan Orlovsky about this, like being
Yeah.
opinionated, being able to share what you really believe, but knowing that you're not too far removed from the league where a lot of these guys know you and might reach out to you and say, "Hey, why are you criticizing me?" And you know this, athletes, even if you're criticizing their performance, they feel like you're criticizing them. So
Yeah.
what's that kind of been like to be critical and be honest about some of the things that you've seen?
Yeah. That's probably been one of my hardest things to get to understand how to do it. But at the same time, I think I've made the transition pretty well because I mean, exactly. Jerry Madelon, he's been my de facto coach. Like he was texting me last night. He texts me all the time. And we've got a really good relationship because he worked in earnest with the NFL Network the last few years. And they were like, your job is Chase. And so we have a really good
That's good.
relationship. He's helped me out a lot and criticize the play, not the player. I mean, that absolutely. And so I've always wanted to protect my relationships. I skew more positive on air because I just think there's so much negative in the world that
Totally.
I'm going to let someone else do it. One of you 20 other analysts, you can go down that hot take path. And as we get further and further into this TV world, I've never been put in a situation by an executive or by anyone at any of these networks I've ever worked at that says you have to say that. I know some places that are like that, and I'm really lucky to not be in a spot like that. And yeah, like I want to be known as the quarterback guy who's positive, but also you gotta be truthful. And if you want credibility, you have to take accountability for what you say on air, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah,
can't say if Dak goes out and throws 3 picks, he had a great game. Like, no, like I think I've mastered a way to explain how and why Dak threw those interceptions more so than like Dak's awful. Like, I can't believe he did that. My thing would be like, yeah, look, I know Dak wants 2 of these interceptions back. He's probably on the sideline beating himself up. Listen, this third interception, it was tipped. It's not his fault. I don't put that on him. So I try to just be positive in a way that tells you the truth, because as soon as you start lying to your audience or they see right through you, you're going to lose all credibility.
totally.
And so for me, that's a fine line I've had to walk. I've been called a little bit, not on like TV, but I do this YouTube breakdown channel, like a QB apologist. And I think for me, it's like I'll always have a QB in a right mind for me because I played the position. But I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at truly like critiquing certain parts of the game that went wrong.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that's smart. I don't think I asked you this a few times we've had you on before. South Lake, Texas is where you grew up, or
Yeah.
Irving, Texas, I think, and then South
Hmm.
Lake. Cowboys fan, I assume, right? Like you grew up in the 90s when they were winning titles. Is that an assumption that's fair to make?
Yeah, Alvin Harper, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith, like Jay Novacek, all those guys. Yeah, we grew up in Irving, where old Cowboy Stadium was. So
Yeah.
I would say I grew up a Cowboy fan. I don't remember. I mean, I remember going to games with my dad, but it wasn't like we weren't overly ecstatic about it. I was a big Brett Favre fan. That's why I wore number 4
Yeah.
in high school. And but yeah, I mean, mostly a Cowboys fan, I would say. Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
good. I was wondering because I figured being a quarterback, playing in
Yeah,
Texas, Troy Aikman, like the
yeah,
lore and the
it
mystique
was
of the
real.
Cowboys. Yeah, and they played the Packers. It felt like every year, so
A
I could
lot of
see what.
Super Bowl championships during my Super Bowl. Yeah, it's like that. That was the heyday when I was like 6, 7, 8. It was awesome.
So I'm a little older than you, and I was in college during those years when they were winning the Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it's been a long time. And so I watch when you put out a video like you did with Dak, and I watched that, and I'm just as a fan speaking here. So this is not professional
Yeah.
broadcast. This is just fan. I watch it and I loved the way you did it because you weren't just trying to get a hot take to get clicks because that's what everybody else does in media. Because why would you talk about a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl in 29 years? Like, why? Like, what's
Yeah,
the point? But it's
yeah.
because people care, obviously, about the
People
team.
care.
And then if you watch Dak, you know, okay, he's a really good quarterback. It's clear that
Yeah,
he's a good quarterback, but
yeah,
something hasn't clicked in the big moments. But I get so caught up now as an older guy, 50 years old, I'm watching it and saying, why? Like, why do we have to be so hot takey? Because I know that affects the players too
it
and the
does.
quarterbacks on some level. I liked it in the 90s because there wasn't all this. There was
Yeah,
just a game on Sunday and a few shows during the week, you know, magazines, newspapers, whatever. And it was just different to watch sports then. You've played in this era. I don't
yeah.
know, man. It just feels like it's a harder time to play football and to be a fan in some ways for me. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I would agree with that. I think that's a pretty well thought out and accurate take, in my opinion, by you. I think that the hardest thing for fans to understand at this part of our game, because it's growing, the game of football is growing.
Of
I mean,
course. It's
so
great. Yeah.
rapidly.
Yep.
It's the second most popular sport in all the world behind soccer, and easily in America. It's everybody's biggest rated TV show,
Yep.
every network. And so I think it's hard for these humans to actually think of these players that they see as actual humans.
Right.
And that, from my perspective, like I'm seeing some of these things on the internet when we're playing, and I'm like, you would never say this to my face. Like you would never, ever, ever say this to my face. And you know, it's the world we live in, right? Like it's the social media world where news is so rapid and it's great. You can't get too caught up in it. And I've known players to get caught up in a news cycle. Like, look at this guy, he's tweeting about me. Even reporters at some point, like they feel like, I feel that a lot has skewed, not negative, but also like they want to cut through in this crowded space of NFL reporters, analysts, etc. So they feel like their way of cutting through is saying something ignorant, not true, or that's skating on the truth.
Right.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. Like, to me, I just try to be as I am off the field and off the mic as I am on the mic. And
Yeah.
so I think that's refreshing to a lot of people. But I do think that you're seeing it right now. Like everything, in my opinion, for sports media, especially the NFL coverage, is skewing toward more and more former players doing the gig, because these former players, not to take away from anyone that went to journalism school, my wife went to journalism school. Like there are some really,
Yeah. I
really
did too.
excellent, integrity driven, like human beings that deserve to have this chance. But I do think these networks are starting to lean more. I know these networks are starting to lean more on former players because they have been in their shoes. They can tell the experiences, they can tell the stories, they can tell the X's and O's. And so that's where I'm sort of getting a shot at some of these things, because I played backup. You know, I was backup quarterback for 14 years. I've seen so many crazy things, played for 2 Hall of Fame coaches, a Hall of Fame quarterback, like 7 teams, 14 different years, a lot of stuff. And I draw on my experiences. And you're seeing it right now. The show that's cutting through the most, Pat McAfee. He's
Hmm.
a former player. If you actually watch the show, other than the language, which I don't need,
Totally.
he is very positive.
Yeah.
And America loves that. He rarely, and he says it all the time. He's like, there's enough negativity in the world. I hope to open up space where you can come in and just hang out like a dude or a woman, and we're just talking sports. And I think that's what you're seeing sports media move toward.
Yeah, that's really good. I think the podcast that you're now a part of, Scoop City, with the Athletic and with Diana, who I've worked briefly with at ESPN, but she was obviously there doing great things, and now with the Athletic as kind of their main NFL person. But you get to work with her, but also interview some really cool people and put this podcast together. What's that experience like? Because I saw the first few episodes where Andy Reid and Saquon, like, so These are big
Yeah.
names that you're getting to talk to, and an opportunity to have conversations and hopefully get some people to open up in a different way than just your typical, Q&A from a media member.
Yeah, I can't say enough about The Athletic and the New York Times, who owns them. One of the main owners of the entire New York Times reached out to me on this podcast. Like, I'm not going to say the name, but he was just like, dude, we just thank you. You're doing an amazing job. So, like, it's a very family atmosphere, family friendly atmosphere. You could tell that The Athletic and the people that they put behind this show in particular, and the shiny new toy that is Diana, who came over from ESPN, it's excellent. Like,
Yeah,
it is like all hands on deck. We probably have 8 people that are just delegated to our show.
that's
And so
phenomenal.
that tells me a lot about the push that they believe in. She interviewed 20 co-hosts, and she tells the story is like, as soon as you got on and we did a mock interview, within 2 minutes, all my producers, everyone, they're texting, this is the guy, this is the guy, this guy. So we have good chemistry. I've known her from the time she's covered me.
Yeah.
She is so good at storytelling, Jason. It's like, it makes me, when I'm on, I feel way inferior to her just because she's been doing it. She's so good. She's starting to write more. The way she has handled guests on the show, and just her connections, like, I'm learning a lot from that. Like you said, we had Andy Reid in person, the
Yep.
first interview. I mean, we just started this podcast, has over 50,000 views on YouTube. And so it's just cool to see that, because I love Andy. We had Stephen Jones on the second episode, Saquon Barkley the third episode. We're talking to Ryan Tannehill. We got Kirk Cousins coming on the end of this week. So it is something that's really cool. And honestly, more and more people are moving away from TV hot takes to YouTube podcasts, and they're just throwing it on in the car when they're driving around, and they really enjoy it. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a way to cut through. It's definitely something that the New York Times and the Athletic are throwing a lot of money at in terms of just promotion. Like, dude, we're going to be on, this is the craziest thing ever. We're going to be on a massive billboard in Times Square for 10 days, starting August 16th.
That's great.
It's like, so it's just really cool, and it's really been fun to be a part of starting something with her and this team.
Yeah, I love it. Hopefully people will go and listen. It's going to be on
Yeah.
my podcast to listen to throughout the fall when I'm looking for different types of conversations on football
Yeah.
and not just the same old stuff. So it's called Scoop City. People can go download and listen to it everywhere podcasts are found. Let's spend a few minutes here before we say goodbye on faith. Tell me about your walk with Christ and how you're feeling connected to the Lord in the state of, or I should say, the season that you're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, overwhelmed would be the word to describe me in my everyday life, and not in a bad way, because I've played 14 years. I missed a lot of family time, and this year and a half that we've sort of been out, almost two. Well, it's starting to say year, so about a year and a half we've been out. I've got to coach all 3 of my oldest son's sports, like head coach, like it's like flag football, basketball, baseball. I've gotten to drive my kids to school, drop them off, and pick up my kids from school almost every day. That was like one of my things the first year out, is like, I want to be a dad.
Yeah,
And it's been tough at times, and we've had to lean on the Lord, because the transition out of the game for a lot of guys can be really tough. And I think you can lose your identity, because unfortunately, a lot of people in the league, their identity is football player first. I think what has helped me tremendously is my identity was in the Lord, that He died on the cross to save us of our sins and the world be set free. And I think that is something that is like so important to me. I've really probably had to lean on Him a lot in this time, and it was a little scary transitioning out, but I feel like since I had that base, when I began, it became more like, okay, you're transitioning out, but you're a follower of Christ, dad, husband, and then you can be sort of what you want. And I struggled, I'm not gonna lie, like, I struggled with it,
sure.
because it is hard to keep it into perspective. And I would say, even before I met my wife, we've talked about this before, like, I was football all the time, all the way, friends, maybe God sprinkled in there and church sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
And man, I'm just so thankful that I met my wife, and I think marrying my wife, obviously your priorities change right away, but then having 3 kids, it just really grounds you in terms of like, okay, like there's so much more to life than football. And it's been cool because we've been here in San Diego in this house that we built for, shoot, it'll be 3 years in October. So we've really got to pour in at a local church. We go to Venture Church in Encinitas, California. Pastor Troy Martin is one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my entire life. I'm on a church league softball team that we're
Nice.
playing. And so it's just been really cool to just like take a step back. I don't have to be a football player. I can just be a normal human. And in San Diego, you can do that because they don't care about football. They don't.
Yeah,
And so it's been really, really cool and really helped with the identity process of who I am as I transitioned out.
that's good. That's good. If you're putting on your analyst hat and you're doing a YouTube sort of recreation analyst role of Chase Daniel, the the church softball player, like how are you breaking it down here? What are we looking at?
Um, yeah, Chase, the softball player, thought he was going to be a lot better at slow pitch softball than he was. Hurt his knee like the second week out because I
Oh
hadn't been
no,
working out.
injuries. Yeah.
Plays second base, but is error filled for sure and can hit a ball decently, but needs to work on his fielding for
Okay.
sure.
All right. Well, that's good analyst work right there. See,
Yeah,
you're putting
put your hat on. Yeah.
your head on right away. That's right. The media work. All right. Last question. When you think about gratitude in the Lord and just kind of where you are today, but I also think being a dad, and you mentioned that because being a dad to your 3 kids, you've been a dad for years, but this is the time where you really get to be all in, full time,
Yeah.
super dad, as you wrote on the graphic here as we're recording. Has what has it been like to be more present, if you can, now that you're not playing football with your kids and seeing God as Father in a different light? Does that make sense on how I'm asking that?
Yeah, I just think that patience comes
Hmm.
to mind with the Lord's patience with me when I'm sort of straying or I'm not maybe in the word as much.
Sure.
And it's you build that muscle up, right? And you want to get at least for me, I build that muscle up of quiet time every morning, and I have time where I pray, and if I miss that, something just doesn't seem right. I've missed a few days. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's something you do, at least for me, and I'm like, man, I'm yearning for it. I need God's word. It's
Yeah.
the same as parenting because I wasn't around and it was easy because I would fill in and do that. Now I'm around all the time and it's patience all over again because I'm having to deal with the whining. I'm having to deal with the crying. I'm having to, and my wife would say that's probably something I struggle with. And I would agree. I would agree. Like it is hard a transition to be out of the house all the time. And I feel like I'm really good in and around the house, helping with chores and stuff like that. But the kids are excellent and they're such a fun age and everyone's like everyone is saying you're gonna miss these days. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna miss like the cleaning up and pooping in underwear as we're trying to like, I don't know, maybe I will. And then they grow up and you just get emotional and mental problems,
Yes.
like it's just
That's what
like,
it is.
so I would probably say patience would be the word for me for sure.
Yeah, no, that's good. Remind people listening, how old are your kids and what ages you're
Yeah,
in right now?
so Preston is our oldest son. He is going to be 7 in September. Our middle daughter Parker, she's amazing. Giving us a run for her money right now with her sleep schedule, but she's 4.5, and we have a daughter Ashton who just turned 3 years old.
Wow.
She's going to a little 3-day-a-week program here in when school starts here in a month or so, and we're in the process. We're like 99% potty trained,
Good.
and so we're still working on that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
that
going well
1%
though.
stands out the most, though, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. There's no doubt.
No, that's awesome. Well, give our best, give our love to Hillary. Obviously, it's awesome to watch you kind of growing as a media guy, but I love watching you now as a dad and being able to be present with your kids even more. And obviously, 14 years in the NFL is nothing to shake a stick at. It's really great, and congrats on all that. And hopefully, I get to see you pretty soon. But either way, I appreciate you coming back on the show, brother.
Thanks for having me on, dude.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportspectrum.com.